Hi guys, here's the process we'll use to bring custom artwork into Lineage 2. We'll start with a transparent image, turn it into a texture and static mesh in Unreal Editor, encrypt the texture for interlude, and finally use L2 SMR to place, rotate and scale it inside Aiden. Let's get started. You can use pretty much any design you want here, but the important part is that the image has a transparent background. For my example, I'm using the Player Explains Graffiti that you saw at the beginning of the video. Lineage 2 works best here if we prepare the texture at a power of 2 resolution. So I'm going to use a canvas of 1024 by 512 pixels. Instead of manually resizing and potentially stretching the artwork, I'm going to let ChatGPT prepare the file for me. I upload the image and give it a prompt asking it to preserve the transparency, crop away unnecessary empty space, maintain the original aspect ratio, fit everything inside a 1024 by 512 transparent canvas, and export the result as a 32-bit EGA. This part is important. We don't want to simply stretch the original image to 1024 by 512, because that would distort the artwork. The design should remain proportional and any remaining area should stay completely transparent. Once the TGA is ready, download it and keep it somewhere easy to find. Now we can move into Unreal Editor. For this step, we need the Lineage 2 version of Unreal Editor that works with the Interlude client. If you already have L2 Editor installed, you can skip this part. Once it's downloaded and extracted, launch the editor and open the texture browser. This is where we're going to create our custom texture package. Inside the texture browser, choose Import and select the TGA file we just created. I'm creating a package called Player Explains _T. The group will be Graffiti, and the texture itself will be called Wall Graffiti. For the import options, enable alpha and generate mipmaps. Leave masked disabled. The transparency needs to come from the alpha channel of the image. After importing it, you should see the artwork appear inside the texture browser. Before moving on, open the texture properties and make sure the texture is configured to use its alpha channel. For this type of image, we are using alpha transparency rather than a hard masked edge. If your editor exposes the relevant surface options, alpha texture should be enabled, masked should remain disabled, and two-sided can also be enabled. Once that's done, save the texture package again. Now we need something in the game world for this texture to actually sit on. For that, we're going to create the simplest mesh possible, a flat rectangular sheet. Open the sheet builder, set the width to 1024 and the height to 512, matching the aspect ratio of our texture. Set both horizontal and vertical breaks to 1 and use the x-axis. Then build the sheet. Next, use Add Special. Keep it as a regular brush, set the solidity to non-solid, and enable two-sided. We don't need this object to behave like a physical wall. It's simply going to sit slightly in front of an existing wall and display our texture. Once the sheet has been added, select it and convert it into a static mesh. For the static mesh, I'm using Package, Player Explains. Group, Graffiti. Name, Wall Graffiti Plane. Now open the static mesh browser and select the mesh we just created. We still need to connect our texture to it. Select Wall Graffiti in the texture browser. Open the material list for the static mesh and use that texture for material slot 0. Save the static mesh package as playerexplains.usx. At this point, we have the two custom assets we need, one UTX texture package and one USX static mesh package. But there's one more step before the interlude client will load our texture. Lineage 2's original texture packages aren't stored as normal Unreal packages. The client expects them to use Lineage 2's package encryption. For interlude, we need protocol 121. I'm using L2 SMR for this. The version I'm using here comes with L2 file editor, so if you don't already have it, you can get the tool and locate it inside the L2 file editor files. I keep an input and an output folder so I never overwrite my original Unreal Ed package. That's important because I want to keep the unencrypted UTX available if I need to edit it again later. Open PowerShell or command prompt. Use this command where we specify the protocol version we want, followed by the source UTX and the output UTX. Protocol 121 is the important part here, because we are targeting interlude. After the command completes, the file in the output folder is now the version that goes into the game client. Keep the file name exactly the same. The encrypted playerexplains_t.utx goes into the client's textures folder. Our playerexplains.usx static mesh package goes into the client's static meshes folder. The original unencrypted UTX stays somewhere safe for future editing. Now the game has access to both of our custom packages. The final job is placing the mesh into Aiden. For map editing, I'm using L2 SMR. Before changing anything, make a backup of the original map file. Seriously, do this first. For Aiden Castletown, the map we're editing is 24_18.unr. If you're working somewhere else in the world, you'll need to identify the map sector for that location instead. Open the map in L2 SMR, and one very important note: leave old format disabled. For this interlude map, we're working with the normal format. Inside the map, we need a static mesh actor that references our new mesh. A convenient way to do this is to copy an existing static mesh actor and then change its static mesh reference. The custom reference we want is playerexplains.graffiti.wallGraffitiPlane. Once that reference is set, the actor knows which mesh to load, and the mesh itself already knows which texture to use. So the chain is: the add-on map loads the static mesh loads wall graffiti, and wall graffiti comes from our encrypted texture package. Now we need to tell the map exactly where this object should appear. The easiest way to get a starting position is to launch the game. Stand next to the wall where you want the graffiti and use the location command. Here, I'm placing it on this large white wall in Aiden. The coordinates give us a good starting point for X, Y, and Z, but because our mesh needs to sit on the wall rather than at the player's feet, we'll still need to fine-tune them. This usually takes a little trial and error. Back in L2 SMR, enter the coordinates for the static mesh actor. The rotation is pitch 0, yaw 49,152, roll 0. In Unreal's rotation system, 49,152 gives us the cardinal rotation we need to line the plane up straight with this wall. Finally, I scale the mesh down uniformly to 0.18 on X, Y, and Z. The regular scale value stays at 1. Remember that the Y value here also controls how close our flat plane sits to the wall. If it's too far away, you'll see it floating. If you push it too far into the wall, it can start clipping or flickering. So make small adjustments until the mesh sits just in front of the wall surface. Once everything looks right, apply the map changes. Now fully restart the Lineage 2 client, and there it is, our own custom graffiti rendered directly inside Lineage 2 interlude. What started as a transparent image is now a custom texture, attached to a static mesh, encrypted for the client, and positioned directly inside the original Aiden map. And the best part is that the same basic process can be used for much more than graffiti. Custom signs, posters, decorations, logos, and other environment details can all be built around the same idea. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Player Explains for more Lineage 2 projects like this, and I'll see you in the next one.